Hello, my name is Hugh Paterson, and I'm presenting Dublin Core's DCMIType PhysicalObject, and it's used across the Open Language Archives community at the 17th Annual Society of American Archivists Research Forum. Thank you for listening to my paper today, and I will be talking again about Dublin Core's DCMIType PhysicalObject. Let's just take a quick look at the records and a summary of the records anyway. So approximately 480,000 records across 61 different data providers to the OLAC community. And these are provided through Dublin Core and through OAI PMH. They're in a harvester that aggregates them for browsing. 16 of these records, so a very small amount, use the physical object DCMI qualifications using the DCMIType vocabulary. This only occurs in 3 providers. One of them is their XML data set, and another 3 talk about or describe collections of plant specimens. Another 12 then talk about collections of different things where they're referring to computer disks, plants, baskets, crafts, tools, blowguns, reed ornaments, grass, art pieces made from plants, etc. So this is the kind of data that we're talking about in the rest of my presentation. Other studies are sparse on looking at the DCMIType physical object and how it appears across aggregated metadata records. And this is kind of expected because most aggregated metadata records using Dublin Core come from digital repositories where the objects of description are all digital. So one of the paper, the only other paper on the topic that I know about is published just earlier this year. And it talks about how students in library science programs were asked to describe physical paintings on canvas. And so the guidance from Dublin Core would be to view these as images, and whereas the students would sometimes describe them as physical objects. And you can see the reference there for that description. So let's look at then like the guidance from Dublin Core on this particular vocabulary value. In the creation of Dublin Core records, there's a couple of principles that are assumed, and these are explicit in the guidelines for Dublin Core. Dublin Core elements are repeatable upon a record, and Dublin Core record is supposed to describe one and only one item. And so at least an information resource, right? And so WIMI can help us identify this one-to-oneness, but WIMI isn't explicitly declared in Dublin Core. So with these 2 principles, I assume that a well-formed record would only have one DCMI type. And the guidance in the DCMI types suggests that the types are, the element type can be used multiple times. The qualification of that type in using the DCMIType vocabulary is exclusive one-to-one record. There are 12 values, and we're going to talk about the physical object one, which is green. But of those 12 values, then moving image and still image need to qualify also as image, and so they might be able to be conceived as being a subcategory. The format of an object is supposed to be described under the format element rather than the type element. So that means the physical characteristics for a physical item would be under a format element. And that many items like a cassette tape or something should be under the format, and then the primary interaction type would be sound in the case of the cassette tape. There's some historical definitions that are interesting here. And this is primary to some of the use cases that we saw for plant materials. So the current definition says that an inanimate 3-dimensional object or substance, well, a plant material might be a 3-dimensional object or a substance, but is it inanimate? It's hard to tell whether a plant is inanimate, or if a dead plant or a plant turned into a craft work is inanimate anymore. So looking historically, some of the kind of ideas that were in this to be used by this was that a computer, a building like the Great Pyramids, or a sculpture element. That was in version 1. Even before version 1, there was non-human object or substance, and the category includes objects that do not fit into any other categories. Again, suggesting that these DCMI vocabulary items were seen as exclusive in a one-to-one kind of way. And so one item, one object, one record, and one vocabulary item. So this definition of inanimate is fuzzy, especially when we consider that animacy may be conceived of differently across different natural human languages. Humans might be inanimate in one language, but humans and animals in another. This has caused metadata schemas like Dublin Core to add their own value equivalent to physical object called organism. Again, our data. Now, I would like to suggest that there is a proper way to use physical elements or physical object in a repository that does collect records about language resources. And this display here, it gives us a way of thinking about resources. So if we have original audio in the pink and in the gray area, then a transcription of that original audio would be in the dark gray area, right? These are related resources, and those are shown with the blue arrows. And these are often the kinds of things that we see in language archives. Now, those pink areas here in this one, and the same, looking at a more detailed way of that previous slide, we can see that those have an origin, and they have a physical machine that made those origins. So if we had a record, maybe a item level record for a specific recording device or a specific microphone that made those, we could add those to our network of records and give them physical object type. And then if we had a more generalized record, such as a manifestation or an expression record for all digital audio recording devices of that manufactured type, then we could have basically a manifestation record, an expression record, or maybe all digital audio recorders would be a work record, right? So we could have these kinds of records at different levels of the WIMI ontology, but then still use them in the physical item type. And this is what we don't see. So thank you for listening to this presentation, and I anticipate your questions.